All right. Hey, Sam. Could,
Yours. I don't really. Oh, can you give someone else? Or you? I did it the other day.
and that was like enough. Just that was it. Can you squelch the birds? Thanks.
Yep.
Kill two birds with one stone, whatever the right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Glad you're here today. Thank you. Getting acquainted in your new seats this morning. It's great. All right, a couple things to get started with. Thank you. Oh, I thought I had it figured out. We're on page 69 for today. I will be asking you to write something down as well as all the things that you want to write down on your own. So have your lab book out there, your journal. The next extra credit movie is happening coming up soon. It's going to be on Monday, same building as usual, March 3rd, 117 Music Building at 7 o'clock. Kiss the Ground. This movie was really, I found it to be really compelling. The way that they put a lot of different pieces together as far as the story that's going on right now and our Earth story, our people story, our food story. This movie was really a game changer for me. Puts together lots of buy-side stuff. So I hope that you can make it to meet Christine for this movie. The M-Seeks, that means that the midterm feedback for me is available until March 2nd. So please take time to give me some feedback. We still have then weeks ahead of us that we can shift things up. We can make some change where it's appropriate. Understanding that when you do surveys like this, that the feedback is helpful and how it is used might be how you want it to be used, or it might be used in a different way. So just give me some feedback and we'll see what we can do here. And then we get to this, right? The pectoral muscles. So put your hands on your pectoral muscles, okay? Right up here. It's what moves our shoulders, right? Back and forth, working in combination with our pecs in the back. So take a moment and focus on these pectoral muscles. Thinking about all the things that we do with our arms, all the things that we lift, all the things that we, need to, every time we put our backpack on, pectoral muscles are working for us. We don't think about all of these parts of us very often as we use them throughout the day. But what happens is that it's all working together for us. So check this out in this image. The pectoral muscles of a bird are huge, right? This is the bird's sternum down here, the breastbone, the keel, they call it in the bird, just like the keel of a ship. It's so important for keeping balance. So their breastbone, their keel, extends down. Ours is relatively flat because that's what helps us to do what we need to do in life. But birds, they also have these same muscle groups, the same systems that we have, but just shaped differently, right? We have these connections to other beings that we don't typically think about, these parallels in life that we don't typically think about. So thinking about how and feeling our way into the umwelt of birds, how do birds move around this planet? How do they find the food that they need? How do they find the communities? I had a really super cool experience on Sunday. I was in New York City. I was at the Greenwood Cemetery. And I heard a bird that I didn't recognize, a bird that I had never heard before. And I thought, well, maybe it's starlings doing a different call than I've ever heard before. And so I pulled out my phone and I turned on my Merlin app that helps to identify birdsong. We'll be talking a little bit more about this later. The Merlin app, hit the record button, listen, and it comes up with monk parakeet. Monk parakeet in New York City? That's crazy. I've never heard of such, and they're these bright green tropical birds that have found community and are nesting and are living. They live in great communal groups. And so these green tropical birds flying around. So finding community, living in the ways that they do, thinking about bird experience. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. What is the bird experience these days? So we're moving into part 2 of the course. This is the title of your book, Developing Ecological Consciousness. So we're doing that, right? We're making these connections that we may not have seen or understood before. And then what do we do with them, right? What do you do with this new consciousness? Just like we talked about on Monday, we take apart things and then we have to put it back together. So you signed up for this environmental science course, some of you knowing what BiSci was like, some of you not knowing what BiSci is like, some of you understanding that you liked environmental science when you were in high school, so this could be cool. So what we've been digging into is what is environment and the idea that it includes us, and what is science, the idea that we're all scientists, that we move through the world with our curiosity, asking questions, doing experiments. So environmental science paired with this ecological consciousness, this understanding of connection, of how things are connected. So environmental science, when you think about that, resources, ecology, conservation, water, ecosystems, this is more of what the next 4 weeks are going to be about. What's happening in our environment? It might be more of what you would have expected to study environmental science, right? What's happening on this planet to our environment, with our environment. And you might sense a shift. There's a pretty dramatic shift of energy between part 1 of the course and part 2. So you might start to have and acknowledge some different feelings about what we're doing and how we're doing it. What we're learning is going to be different. But the idea that we've now laid this groundwork of part 1 of emotions and connection gives us some tools to move forward into this hard part 2, where the news isn't so great about what's happening in our environment sometimes. So there's an intentionality about part 1, part 2. And so today we're going to ease our way in with stories, life stories of people and birds, and what's happening to them related to our environment today. And in order to do this, I'd like to introduce my friend Doug, who's here with us today. He's known very fondly as the bird guy. Okay, he is the bird guy, probably in several of your circles, Doug, right? You're at Shavers Creek, you're the bird guy. Definitely in BiSci, you have the reputation of being the bird guy.
I don't know where you got that idea. You really don't.
No. So last
Calls
week
me
you
the bird.
reflected on this statement: the more of the world I am in relationship with, the more alive I become.
Jen, I'm trying to do my walk on. I've always wanted to
you're
like a
do-
game, like a
that's right.
game show, you know, like you
Right,
always,
your
you always
walk on,
dream
right.
of like, yeah, you're like,
Yeah,
I guess.
there he is.
It's kind of over
The
there.
music, like walk
Hey, it's
on
great to
music.
be here.
I'm glad you're here. Thank
Yeah.
you. So Doug, I
Jen.
invited you because you are in relationship
I
with
look
the
so
world.
much younger there.
You do.
It's probably the
yeah.
beard. Maybe I should lose the, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do I look wiser with the beard? Or wise ass with the beard? I don't know what, It's
Yes,
my, my winter plumage.
it is your winter.
And then I'll go
plumage.
through a molt and I'll get rid of it. And then,
He does.
yeah.
After knowing him for so long, that's exactly how it happens. Yes.
So birds, that
So
we're talking about.
birds.
Yeah.
Yeah. What has brought you, how have you connected to birds? And what's your story about
my
that?
story with
Why
birds?
are you the bird guy?
Well, first, I don't think of myself as a bird guy, but I,
Sorry.
not
lots of
the
other
bird, yeah,
people.
but you can, yeah, yeah. And any of you nature people? Like when you were kids, you're sort of like, for me, I would fall asleep in the sun as a little kid, you know. I grew up in Reading, Pennsylvania. I am a birds fan because I'm from the eastern part of the state. My mother would let me grow whatever I wanted in the little patch of garden that we had. So ever since I can remember, and my neighbor, Mrs. Hartman, God bless her soul, used to feed birds. And I have no idea what birds she fed, but there were birds in this little postage stamp backyard. And so even though it was in the middle of a city, we had a park within walking distance. As long as I can remember, Jen, birds have been in my world. And Mrs. Hartman would say, those are finches or house sparrows. I have really no idea what they were because it wasn't until later that I could put names onto things, as bird things. I knew what a tomato plant was, right? But for me, as a kid, birds, and still to this day, birds animate my world. In other words, like you, I can't turn it off, right? I parked at Eisenhower. I got out of the vehicle up top. I walked down. As soon as I got out, I heard a house finch singing in the tree. And immediately I was like, oh, house finch in the tree. How you doing? Tufted titmouse. And a cardinal flies through the garden of that millennial building there. Male cardinal red. I could not turn that off if I tried. Why? Because birds animate my world. So I am a bird guy. I'm a bird geek. But you are too, right? You have a relationship to birds, whether or not you recognize it. If you wear a down jacket, you walk around with feathers. If you're like, I mentioned the Eagles, right? Are you an Eagles fan? I mean, birds. Or are you a Penguins fan? Any Ravens fans here, right? Birds permeate our world. And if you're not a vegetarian and you're like any other American, you eat about 90 pounds of chicken a year. And so if you are what you eat, well, you're all in a relationship with birds. So that's what I'm thinking. I mean, they animate the world. They're interesting to me.
Beautiful. So right there in your journals, I'd like you to create a question. So now you have a snippet of who Doug is, just from his introduction, how I introduced him. We've practiced creating questions, how questions, why questions, when questions. So there in your journal, create a question, like a good juicy question for Doug. What intrigues you about what he just said? What would you want to know more from a guy who's called the bird guy? Where birds and other living things animate his world. Create a beautiful question.
A beautiful question.
A beautiful question, a juicy question.
I like that. You look thoughtful. That's good. Yeah, that's good. I like it. I like thoughtful. Could I possibly ask this person I just met?
Yeah, let me just, I understand. Let me think how I can find it.
I have a question. What am I pointing to in that image? I bet it's a bird. That's my guess. I don't know if I remember,
They
but
found you. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Juicy questions for Doug. Microphones are around someplace, I'm sure. Thank you, Morgan. Thank
Jen,
you, Zach.
I'm fully caffeinated this morning.
I can
I
tell.
had a full French press filled with, do you know there's bird-friendly coffee? That your choice of what kind of coffee you drink also says something about you as a person.
Mhm.
And I choose to drink bird-friendly
Choose to
coffee
drink.
from, yeah. You might be wondering what that means, but it means exactly as it sounds, that there are coffee farms in the world that are organic and have support habitat for birds. They have a native canopy of trees and coffee underneath. And if you buy your coffee from that sort of farm, you're doing those birds a favor by supporting that business.
Sweet.
Yeah, yeah.
So
No, not sweet.
now-
I don't put it,
not sweet.
I know, it's just
Okay.
black. Thank
black,
you.
I know. So with that in mind, that he's ready for some
I
good
am.
juicy questions. So what intrigues you? Yeah.
If you can turn into any bird, what would it be? Like for the rest of your life?
Awesome question. You know, I can't well, I would want to know, are we talking length of time here? Am I going to be a bird forever? If I could be a bird forever, I'd want to be something that is long-lived, right? Because that's my human perspective, you know. So an albatross that flies over, but then I'd be like, but albatross live over the open ocean. And even though they could live for 70 years, they're just skimming the waves, hardly flapping. They probably even sleep while they're moving. That doesn't sound very much fun. And you only get together with everybody once a year to mate and do, you know, so maybe something a little bit more, oh, golden eagle would be cool. So right now I'm going to say golden eagle, but ask me tomorrow or ask me 5 minutes from now, I'll be like, well, hummingbirds be kind of cool. What about that? Yeah.
Thank you.
But it's fun to imagine, isn't it? And when we imagine and see the world through other eyes, so it would then, as I think about that, what does our world look like as a golden eagle moving over the landscape of Pennsylvania? And then I go to Google Maps and I'm like, yeah, I kind of get that, but imagine the wind through your face. And because golden eagles, their eyesight is a little bit much better than ours. The acuity that they see the world, the movement that they see the world, golden eagles process movement and vision much quicker. They process sound much quicker as well. So my world would be blown away. I think about flying, but then I think about all the other ways that birds see the world. Do you know birds have a fourth color receptor? They see an ultraviolet light. What does that look like? Whoa, I don't know. But they do.
Yeah.
They see an ultraviolet. Their world looks nothing like we see it. Unless you're an owl, there are exceptions, but I can't imagine what that house finch I heard singing is listening to or seeing, but it's radically different than what we see and hear.
Next question. Next awesome question.
So the song of a mourning dove for me is like really nostalgic. Like I think I see that like with a lot of people, it reminds you of your childhood. And I was interested to know, is there a specific song or bird that kind of, when you hear that song, it kind of brings you back to a specific like memory, like happy nostalgic memories?
Yeah, and mourning doves, if you don't know, have a very plaintive sound. And they're mourning not in good morning, but they're mourning as in, oh. Because mourning doves are thought, I think it's indigenous people here thought that mourning doves mourn those who have no one else to mourn. So their song and I don't know if we want to play Mourning Dove,
Oh,
but
I can cut it.
yeah. But you know, you think about, does the choice of song that you listen to influence your mood? It does for me. If I want to get some energy, I'm going to listen to something that energizes me. Birdsong, I think, is the same way. There's certainly, because birds and people and place go together in my mind. If I listen to a certain bird song, maybe it reminds me of someone else that I was with, or a place that I would hear that bird song. But song and just our auditory world is all about, to me, connects to emotion and mood. And I'm very careful what I listen to these days. I don't need any more sadness in my world, so I tend to avoid songs that make me sad. But Morning Dove isn't one of those. It's owl-like, and Jen's going to play Morning Dove probably off her Merlin app. Hold it up to your mic. That sounds sad to you? I don't know. But I don't need to see that bird. If I heard that outside, I'd go, Morning Dove, because nothing else sounds like a mourning dove to my ears. Are you one of those people who, if you weren't looking at who called you and you just picked up the phone and someone started talking, you'd go, I know who you are because I recognize your voice. If you could recognize someone's voice, you too could learn to pay attention to bird language. You'll never be lonely again because you'll have things that sing to you. Your world will be animated. It'll become alive for you. A walk across campus, especially now that daylight is increasing. A month ago, that house finch was not singing, but now the temperatures have warmed, but more importantly, day length has increased. The bird's song will increase. And if you're tied to song and emotion that way, I don't know, bird song makes me awfully happy. Speaking of bird song, if you're interested in giving yourself a treat, a present, tonight and probably for the next, I don't know, potentially a month, the neighborhood aside of the Arboretum. So we're on Park and you're looking at the Arboretum and you got the business building, that Star Wars looking thing over on the right-hand side. I'm looking at the Arboretum. On the left, there's a neighborhood there. In that neighborhood, there's tons of evergreen trees and shrubs. There has been, in the last month, about, when the sun is starting to go down, at about 5:30, 5:45, in that neighborhood, about 1,000 robins start to gather. Along with them, starlings and blackbirds, and they fill the neighborhood with sound and movement. And you could be one of those people who just walk the neighborhood and go, good night, robins. See you tomorrow, hopefully. They gather. And if you want to see something of, if you're curious about what does predation look like? What is the excitement of the chase? Not only do 800 robins gather, or 1,000 robins, but several Cooper's hawks, which are bird-eating hawks, also come in, because for them, it's sort of like, it's dinner time. Which of these robins isn't paying attention? Which of these robins is a little slower? Which of these robins might be ill? Which of these robins will be dinner tonight? This plays out every evening, and you too could experience that. And by sundown, all the robins are going into these shrubs, these thick evergreen shrubs, because it's a safe, great place to spend the night. What a treat. I'm not a gambler, but you could bet someone that you could see 100 robins and you would win that bet if it was 5:30 in that neighborhood. That's your hot tip for the day.
Hot tip. Question.
I was wondering, what is the coolest bird you've ever seen?
Where did that come from?
Right here.
Oh, hi. What was the coolest bird I've ever seen? Would be, because for me, it's not just seeing something, right? Or hearing something. It's what is the bird doing as I'm seeing it? Where is it at? Because birds are associated with habitat, right? It's not just, you know, you don't just, you have friends, right? It's not just seeing the friend from across the, hey, how you doing? It's good to see you. Yeah, I want to talk to my friend. I want to hang out with my friend. I want to spend time with my friend. Same with birds. It's not just what is it that I saw, but what is the bird doing? Jen said I work at Shavers Creek, and I do. Jan's a colleague, April's a colleague, Autumn's a colleague. And there are times when in May, bald eagles and osprey come together on Lake Perez. And one of the coolest things that I've seen is when an osprey, which is a big hawk, a fish-eating hawk, grabs a fish out of Lake Perez and starts to fly up to find a place to eat it. And bald eagles harass ospreys to get them to drop the fish. So one of the coolest things I've seen lately is last year, an osprey with a fish, a bald eagle coming at that osprey, the osprey trying to circle further and further away and trying to figure out, will this eagle catch me, or will I be able to spiral out of its reach? And eventually, the osprey decides the fish ain't worth it, and it lets it go. And you watch this, probably a trout, start coming down from the sky, and you watch this bald eagle go after the fish, and sometimes they catch it in midair. That's a lot going on there, right? But that's pretty cool. And if you become a bird person, you too will see that. Do you know that paying attention to the natural world and birds, because they animate the world and they sing to us, you know, it makes us happier persons? Yesterday, I was listening to NPR, National Public Radio. There was a report, a scientific paper that just came out. They did a study of people who gave up the internet at home for 2 weeks, which simply meant they could get on the computer and have the internet at work, but when they were at home, they could not do that. And then they asked those people, so that means no news feed. That means no social media. That means somewhat free of that. They asked those people how their mental health was after 2 weeks. And as you could guess, because you know, they said, I feel happier, because they would continue to do the things they've done, but they would do more of it. They would go for walks outside, and they wouldn't take their phone with them, and they'd pay attention. So those people reported a happier self for 2 weeks. And the authors of the study equated the difference in their happiness was equivalent to taking mood-altering drugs. So in other words, giving up internet for 2 weeks was just as good as taking antidepressants. But what do you do if you're not doing this? Well, if you're in relationship with other things, other life, if you care enough, and things sing to you, and things move and catch your eye, and you start putting names to things and entering in relationship with the robin that nests in your backyard, you find out that you are a happier person, because you know what? Birders are, as a group, happier people. Do I seem happy to you? I am. I truly am. Birds bring me joy.
Do you have a bird call that you perform?
Do I have a bird call that I perform? Is that what I am to you, just a performer? Am I not a messenger from the birds? Do I not speak for the trees, for the robins, for I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I do, but I do care enough. I haven't asked them, but I do care about them, right? And so I speak by the choices that I make, my lifestyle choices. I'm a 30-year vegetarian, because I consider I think of animals as being on, I like this quote. It was, animals are my friends. Friends don't eat friends. That's always stuck with me. It's not my original, but I think about, I think about my relationship to the natural world. And so do I do bird songs? Sure, because that's how I learn, right? You know, if you were curious about what a robin sounds like, yeah, the mnemonic, in other words, the words that we put to the sound, the song of a robin or the call of a robin would be something like cheery up, cheerio, cheery up, cheerio, cheery up, cheerio. So that's sing-songy. I can't make that quite, I can't really do that sound, but I can use mnemonics. When I hear a robin, I'm thinking, oh, cheer up, cheerio, cheer up. Very flute-like. They're a member of the thrush family, really melodic sound. But there are birds in my range. Here's my, they're not here yet. They're still in the tropics. But by the end of April, beginning part of May, they come back. I'm thinking of, oh, wait, let's do this. I present to you mystery bird number 1. It sounds like this. Oh, I've sang you to sleep. That's beautiful. What do you think that is? What did it sound like? If you had to put words to it. What words were there?
Right here, Doug.
An owl?
Oh,
An
and here's my gray horned owl. Ooh, 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 ooh. This is a little bit lighter.
Is it a dove?
It does sound a little bit like a dove. You're right, but it's not. It's saying its name. Coop, 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 coop. Think flock.
Is it a cuckoo bird?
It is. It's a black-billed cuckoo. Do you know we have cuckoos in Pennsylvania? They nest here. Yellow-billed cuckoo, black-billed cuckoo. Yellow-billed cuckoo goes coop, 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 coop. Want to impress friends? Win friends, influence others? Work on your cuckoo call. Let me tell you, they'll think you're something special. But that's what cuckoos sound like. And if you're in May in the woods, Pennsylvania, and you hear a bird going kook, 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 nothing else quite sounds like a cuckoo. And again, I'll bring your attention to, if you can recognize the voice of a friend, you can make friends in the avian world. You can allow birds into your heart and into your life, and you will never be lonely again. You will go to the grave, as I intend, wanting to learn more about birds, wanting to see the 10,000 birds in the world, feeling as though I haven't quite figured it all out. Because you know, when you study natural history, whether it is birds, or maybe you're a plant person, maybe butterflies are fascinating. Maybe you like the idea of growing plants for monarch butterflies. I love milkweed. What? Natural history, the understanding of the natural world, we're only scraping the top. You could become what I consider a naturalist, a person who just studies the natural world. If you do that, you will go to your grave going, if I only learned more about mayflies. I really almost had the native orchids down. Maybe I'll work harder on the goldenrod ID.
We have a question here.
You said that they see ultraviolet, and why is that essential for them?
Evolution it's hard to figure out why Some of them see in ultraviolet light. But birds, if you think about their life, their visual acuity is pretty important. Whether we're dealing with, there are some birds that rely on fruit as a food source. And we have a bird in Pennsylvania called the cedar waxwing that pretty much its diet even feeds its young insects, but at a very early age, fruit as well. So you could imagine that under ultraviolet light or having a fourth color receptor, maybe there's cues in berry ripeness. Interestingly enough, cedar waxwings are the only bird I can think of that there are many reports of cedar waxwings being intoxicated because they eat overripe, fermented berries. Are they doing that on purpose? Maybe, I don't know. I haven't asked them. But a lot of birds are insectivores, so they eat insects. And under ultraviolet light, you think about Penn's woods, the greenery, and in that oak tree where those leaves unfurl are little tiny green caterpillars. But to a chickadee that eats thousands of those little green caterpillars, just maybe those green caterpillars are not as camouflaged to a chickadee because some of those caterpillars under UV light look different than the leaves themselves. So I think evolutionary pressure to probably find food, but birds are also incredibly colorful. So a bird like a chickadee, which to our eyes, I cannot tell them apart, males from females. They look the same. They're not sexually dimorphic. Like a cardinal is, the male is beautiful red, the female is a beautiful brown with an orange. But under ultraviolet light, chickadees that to our eyes look the same, when you put the face of a male chickadee under ultraviolet light, the white turns pink. And she sees that. And he sees that. So I don't know, I'm guessing is that sexual selection and food has driven that.
So Doug, you mentioned that you drink bird-friendly coffee,
Yes.
which then implies that doing things for birds
Yes.
is helpful.
Yes.
Yes.
Helpful to me, right? I have to, if I have a code of ethics or how I want to live through the world, I have to make sure that it matches with my actions as best as I can, right? So I have to make conscious choice of what I do. So yes to that. I'm not perfect. I don't, if someone buys me a cup of coffee, I'm not going to say, well, hey, is that song? We might talk about it, but I'm not, yeah.
So that also, though, implies that maybe there are other things that we can do for birds. It also implies that maybe birds need something from us right now.
Yeah. If you've been doom scrolling for the last 5 years or so, you'll notice there are stats like there are loss of 3 billion birds. That was a snapshot of 50 years ago based on volunteer studies and other just looking at abundance of birds. 50 years ago, there were, at a snapshot in time, in the summer breeding in North America, there were 10 billion birds. Fast forward 50 years, that same snapshot in time revealed that there were only 7 billion birds present in North America, meaning that we now lost 3 billion birds from the landscape. So a lot of bells went off because of that. So clearly, not every bird species is in decline, but many of them are. So let's just pretend that you're like, okay, I'll give birds a chance. I'll start paying a little bit more attention. Maybe I will track down those robins just to see what it looks like. Maybe when I walk outside, I'll look for red-tailed hawks that are perched on campus, eating the gray squirrel that are also on campus. Maybe I'll just, on the way back from the library at 2 in the morning, maybe I'll listen for great horned owls because they are here on campus too. Maybe I'll become a little more curious about birds. And if you do that, what you find out is when you're driving your car on a forested road and you have the opportunity to slow down a little bit, especially in springtime as birds are moving back and forth and they don't really pay attention to cars. Why would they? Evolutionarily speaking, cars have just appeared. You start to do things like, when I drive, I pay attention to wildlife. I try not to run over things like turtles and salamanders, and I brake for songbirds just a little bit to make sure that they go across the road without me hitting them. I do that because there are probably millions of birds that are hit on highways and small roads every year. And you might have pets in your life. You might even be the owner or I don't know if you own cats, you live with cats. You might have a cat in your life, or several. There are people who are cat people. Yeah, cat people. If you're a birder and you have a cat, my cat's a indoor cat. I have a catago. My back porch is where the cat goes outside. And sometimes I put a harness on that little cat and I take him for a walk with the harness on, because cats kill songbirds. And probably the #1 human associated death of songbirds is the cats that we have unleashed on the environment. Not just pet cats, but free range cats. Yeah. And there's studies to back that up. People have put cameras on cats. My little cat couldn't possibly eat songbirds. Put a camera on your cat and you find out that cat eats birds or kills them. And small mammals too. Those are two things. And oh, by the way, you may not have a garden, but there might be someone in your life that mows grass and keeps a lawn, right? Another simple thing that you can do if you are a bird person or you simply care, things like cutting the use of herbicides and pesticides. And how do we live in a world where we just poison things that we don't like? And do you think that poison goes away? I don't know. I'm not a chemist, but it doesn't take much to think if I'm poisoning insects on my lawn, that poison doesn't just go away. So that's another simple thing you can do, is just ask people do we really need that much lawn? Do you really need to fertilize your lawn? Do you really need to spray insecticide on your lawn? You don't have a lawn, but I bet you know someone who does. And if you become a bird person, oh, by the way, you are warned. Don't come back to me in a couple of years and saying, I became a bird person because of you. Ooh, I can't turn it off. I can't stop listening to birds when I go on vacation in the shore. I want to know what those little sandpipers are that run back and forth in the waves. They're called sanderlings, by the way. And if you go to the Jersey Shore, you will see sanderlings. Don't blame me if you wake up at 2 in the morning because the gray horned owl outside is hooting and you left your window open just because you thought you might hear one, because you live in an area where gray horned owls, Lederer Park, which is really close to here, just off campus, has a nesting pair of great horned owls. If you were curious, you would find that nest no problem. But don't come complaining to me if you become a birder. I didn't do it to you. You chose to do it. And you chose to be happier. You chose to know what you're fighting for when you change your lifestyle, when you eat a little bit less meat, when you use a little less gas, when you slow down a little bit, because something else depends on your action. And the planet needs not just the people, but the other earthlings too. Who the hell wants to go to Mars? I don't. I like our planet right the way it is. I'd like us to spend our energy on making this a better place for all the earthlings. And I ain't talking just about people. I'm talking about the other species that inhabit our beautiful blue planet. Annie Dillard. Annie Dillard is an author, Pennsylvania. She's from the Pittsburgh area. She wrote a book called Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, a coming of age story. In the book, Annie is watching this mockingbird jump off the corner of a building, and the bird goes down, and right before it hits the ground, This bird opens its wings, these white patches, fans its tail, and it sort of lands nonchalantly on a post. And she just had turned the corner and watched this unfold. And because she's an observer, because she's an author, she writes this down in this beautiful paragraph. And at the end of it, she basically says that this happens all the time. These moments of beauty in the natural world. This part where she just watched something and it just moved her. This beauty of this bird doing this little behavior. And she said, if nothing else, if we do nothing else, we could at least bear witness to this beauty that happens all around us all the time. I wish for you that you increase the amount of time that you pay attention to the world around you. And I am a bird person, so I would say that birds are accessible to you, that when you look for them, you will find them. When you listen, you will hear them. And if you use the Merlin app, you too can identify birds just by sound, or just be curious and birds will come to you.
7 things. This is the app. Merlin Bird app. You want to mention the bird glass, or are we too late?
I think they're packing up because they have lots to think about.
Yes.
Thank you all. It's great to be here. Hope to see you out at Shavers Creek. You're coming out to visit, I understand.
I'll be posting your Canvas discussion question right after class. Thank you.
Gotta call Autumn down.
Fair enough. I'll work on it.